with here we are on segment 5. Eva is a doll, isn't she? We've had a pretty great show so far tonight. We talked about thank you, Stephen. We talked about Eduardo Rosa Flores. We talked about Souter retiring from the Supreme Court. We talked about Arlen Specter and the fallaciousness of the magic bullet theory. And now we're going to do a long question-answer period. I've got a couple friends here, but there's more to be said about the Cheney assassination squad mercenary guerrilla guy who got killed 2 weeks ago, who we've been focusing on for the show. But we can talk about anything now. If you want to know about my hair, or my friend's hair, or my friend's accent, or Harry's accent, or any of it, now's the time. So bring it on. Unfortunately, for those of you who are new, there's a little bit of a delay in the typing. Hi, how you doing, Blue? There's a little bit of delay in the typing, and like when you type it, we don't see it right away. So we're just gonna ramble on until we get a question from y'all. So yeah, if I know you, I wish I knew that I knew you, but right now you seem very anonymous. So just love to you, Blue3988. So, what was that question? Mad Dog's gone, but we could answer his question in the meantime. He asked if we think that the Constitution is hanging by a thread. The thread has gotten stronger. The things that need to be intact are not put back in place. I'm very concerned about the lack of action on the front of prosecuting people for torture. But Obama's a politician, and he's not going to do anything he doesn't have to do. And he even fucking said that.
You know, if the Republicans were smart, they would actually have prosecutions for torture, because they really need to do something about their problems with non-white voters.
And, of course,
if you're going out there every day and talking about how great torture is, you sound like a fucking racist, okay?
And not to mention the fact that, honestly, they could bring down a hell of a lot of Democrats by pursuing this too, which is, of course, the real reason the Democrats aren't pursuing it, because fuckers like Pelosi and Harman and all those other sadistic bitches, sorry, I'm a feminist, but fuck them, they're sadistic bitches, would go down just as fast as the Republicans. They were complicit, they were at those briefings, they knew what the fuck was going on, and they didn't do anything about it, and the whole time, Pelosi was in charge. From 2006, or I should say 2007, till the last election, she refused to entertain the notion of impeachment or even hearings for Bush, and that's bullshit. I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a rant right there, but I think that, you know, Fourth Amendment's always been tenuous, but it's still definitely, as long as the Patriot Act's there, we're in danger on the Fourth Amendment. We're not obeying treaties. We have serious problems in terms of, like, elections. You know, our Constitution is not hanging by a thread.
And
but
we have a large segment of the population that doesn't believe in the Constitution, which is another problem.
It could use an overhaul, okay? I've been talking about this a while. Somebody sent me a link about there's going to actually be a Constitutional Congress, and I should have more information about that. Maybe I'll talk about it next time, but now I need to take a drink. So ask us some questions, and Harry, you talk for a minute while I refresh my throat.
What the hell?
Just talk.
Yep. Okay.
Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That the survey about Christians being for torture if it will save lives, because that is the traditional position of the Catholic Church. You know, that Christianity does have a long history of involvement with torture. And that in Christianity, typically torture is aimed at heretics, particularly witches. You know, although it could be connected with conflict with other religions,
and
which is what's going on in this case.
And Joan of Arc, who was like totally into their scene, but they just didn't like her because she had short hair and wore armor. But I'll take this back now. And you know, we don't need to, like, I don't know, we need to come up with something better for this because I feel awkward handing it back and forth. But I want to address Dada Lama's question, which is the left-right dichotomy. I obviously think that the left-right dichotomy is a bit of a sham, although because so many people buy into it and act like it's real, it sort of becomes real.
And I've always had a question about dichotomies. What do they remove in a dichotomy?
Well, they replace something else because, I mean, then you're stuck in dualism, but that's a completely different subject. But what I think is going to happen is, depending on many things, of course, because 2012 is a long ways away, But obviously, unless something major happens, Obama's going to be reelected because everybody in the world loves him. If Gingrich actually does what he's threatening to do, and I kind of believe he could do that, and split the party, he might be a candidate, but then there will be some moderate, quote-unquote, Republican candidate who will probably get less support than the Libertarian candidate, and the right is just going to have nobody to go for.
And it's important to remember that that the non-libertarian right is a major force still.
Unfortunately,
and that can really tie things up. I think that we might unfortunately be in a political system similar to Chile after Pinochet, where essentially every election was a referendum on Pinochet, and that every time the voters rejected Pinochet, but the other parties all had to combine together to defeat the remnants of Pinochet's regime over and over again.
I would actually like to see us, and this would would require major constitutional reform, but I would love to see us go in the direction of something a little bit more like a parliamentary system, because we absolutely have to find a way to have more parties involved in this discussion. Because the Democrats and the Republicans, hate to sound like a broken record, they're just not that different. And the reason we have such low voter participation is because people don't feel like they're being represented by the Democrats or the Republicans. So we need to have more than two parties. We need to find a way for people to work together without there being this instant vilification. There are some things that shouldn't be partisan, like torture. And Bill Maher was saying that. Why is this partisan? Just because the Democrats are against something, the Republicans are for it, or vice versa, that's bullshit.
Well, the reason why torture is partisan is because, there's people in the Republican Party that are criminally implicated, and the other people in the Republican Party don't want to start a knockdown, drag-out fight that would split the party over the issue of torture.
But the party is splitting anyway, and that's what I'm saying. That's why Specter's important, not because of any individual vote, with the exception possibly of healthcare, but because of what it means for the Republican Party. But here's why I don't think that it's a good thing for the Democrats. And as you guys all know, I'm not a Democrat, but if I had to choose between the two, obviously I prefer the Democrats. There are a couple of more sane Democrats than there are sane Republicans, which is not saying much. In the entire Congress, Senate, and the House, I would say there are about 20 people who aren't batshit crazy, and like 4 of them are Republicans, and 15 or 16 of them are Democrats. And that's out of 538 people, right? 538?
Yeah, well, they have a very well-developed crazy machine down there in Washington.
It's just insane. Michelle Bachmann.
You have to visit it to really appreciate it.
I advise you to. You can walk right into that fucking building. You can go into their offices and you bug the shit out of them. Go the other way. You're coming to be on camera? So anyway, this is Jesse. Anybody have any questions about Jesse? Or would you like to talk about the left-right dichotomy and what you think is going to happen? I don't know you to be super political, but you might have a point of view on it.
As far as people switching parties, I think it's more or less just like a call for they want, more people listening have to say. If you switch parties and then you say something, you introduce a new bill, that bill automatically becomes more important, more front page than if you just stuck with the same old and tried to introduce something. I don't know. I think that's part of it.
But I think with Specter, it wasn't as much that because he's already very powerful. But it had more to do with him just being embarrassed to be associated with those crazy fucks.
Yes,
and of course,
because even though he's corrupt, he's not nuts.
But that just gave him a lot more respect to really the left and the right, because they now know that he is willing to stand up for what is right.
Yeah,
for
but
his
unfortunately,
district, as opposed
most
to
of the people on the right...
Either that or he thought it was easier to win as a Democrat.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he definitely thought it was easier to win as a Democrat. I mean, it was... But I think he was right to do it. I have to say, as a Pennsylvanian, and being, like I said, I'm sort of connected to Pennsylvania politics, not just because I'm from there, but because my grandfather was a politician. I met Arlen Specter. We're coming up to 9 minutes, almost 10, and we're going to do our two question sessions. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell the long version of the story I told in my video about Arlen Specter, about confronting him at the town hall meeting about marijuana policy. So stick with us, guys. I love that you're here.